So we say in a lot of our patterns this thing, clip corners and turn. And some people don't know what that means, so I'm going to tell you. Basically what it means is when you have a piece like this is a collar, and it's sewn to another collar. And this is going to be the outside. When you turn it right side out, you see how all of that fabric that's this on the seam allowance there, it all gets stuffed up into this corner, and no matter how you press it, it's still bulky and yucky, and there's just a lot of junk there, and it looks like an amateur job, and it is an amateur job because you haven't done the proper thing. Now what you need to do to trim the corners is, you see where the line of stitching is. I know it's hard to see because it's the right color for the fabric. The line of stitching is 1/2 inch away from the edge of the fabric. And this corner, that stitching will hold. You don't want to cut too close to it, but you can cut very close to it without ruining the piece. So I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to clip my corners, and I'm just going to go and I'm going to cut as close as I dare to that stitching. There's another thing we say when we say clip corners. We also say trim seams, and what trim seams means is just going in there and cutting the extra off the seams, because you don't need that seam allowance bulking up your piece. And I want to show you something else here. You see this right here where I've kind of woobled as I sewed? This isn't, well actually it's not as I sewed, it's as I cut. When I cut this piece, there's a little bit extra there, there's a little bit less there. Sewing is engineering. Don't let anyone tell you any differently. Sewing is absolutely engineering. You use a blueprint like an architect. You consider your materials. You act differently for different materials than others. Some materials are the wrong material for the job. Some are the perfect material for the job, and you seek those out to make what you want to make. It is engineering, just like building a building or a road or anything else. However, fabric is malleable. Fabric is always forgiving. Fabric stretches, warms to the body. It's not like concrete, although concrete stretches and shrinks based on atmospheric temperature as well, exposure to sunlight, etc. That's why you have to keep fixing roads, because they move and break themselves apart. So what I'm trying to get at is that there are people who will tell you you have to be absolutely precise and will be very anal retentive about sewing, and I'm not the best seamstress in the world, I have to admit. I'm a pattern maker, not a seamstress. But fabric is very forgiving, and if you cut a little wrong, as long as it's only a little wrong, you don't have to throw the thing away. You don't have to go in a corner and cry and say how bad you are at this. It's fine. So you see, I've trimmed my seam allowances, and I've cut my corners to the bare minimum. And then when I turn them and give them a press, I have a beautiful edge. Thanks for listening.